Hello friends, let us see how to do this oil pastel red rose painting today. For the complete demo, please do watch till the end. Initially, we will be doing a rough sketch, an outline sketch of the flowers that we want to indicate. I am creating a composition of roses. Basically, the first one that I did would be the focal rose and few roses around the focal rose. I am composing this in the sense that there will not be any element in the exact center of the paper. All the elements will be slightly off center, whether horizontally or even vertically. And I am doing it in a very light pencil sketch, which can be covered as in how we do the oil pastels over it. So now I have completed the rough sketch on the paper and I am now starting with the oil pastels. These are Colman oil pastels that I am using. They are quite good. I am just laying down the basic colors first as an underpainting and an undercoat. These will not be too many. There will not be too many details in the undercoat painting. A rough sort of a color scheme we will be laying down in the initial stage, which we will be developing over as and how the painting goes along. So I want this focal rose to be in red, so it's going to be a bright red rose. So I'm using a red underpainting for this rose. Basically, with different shades of red we will be laying down this underpainting. There will not be too many shades at this stage, only the basic outline and the basic structure of the rose and all the other flowers we will be indicating with this underpainting. So just for a reference, we will be putting in some darker shades with by using pressure of the hand, and that's all. There won't be too many details in this first coat. This is just the base coat, just the base painting, just the initial stage of the coloring. So we have done the red one, which as you can see is not done in too much detail. As in how the painting goes along, it will be developed, of course. Same case with the yellow roses. Now what I am trying to do here is, after the first red rose, that is the focal point rose, I will be having these two yellow roses placed diagonally, and also the other two roses will be placed as white roses diagonally. And I am now adding a little bit of buds, rose buds, which I have added as those red, 3 red rose buds, and a few leaves around the roses. So I am again using just the basic colors of now for the leaves I am using greens, which is just a single color of green. I haven't at this stage I haven't added any shading. And for the white rose, now this one is going to be a white rose. So what I'm going to do is I'm laying down the paper white is already there, so I'm right now laying down just the darker portions of the white rose, which are going to be in shade. Now considering that the light source is from the upper left corner, the shading will be done accordingly. That is, all the left side elements of the petals or the leaves or the general flowers will have lighter tones, and the right side ones, which are against the light, will have the darker shades. Now here at this stage I am also laying down a little bit of the background darker shades, the shadows, so that our flowers start popping out at this stage itself, and we get a general idea of how the overall effect is going to be, without adding too many details at this stage. I'm just using a little bit of varying pressures of the pastels so as to use the darker shades and the lighter shades. Again, very few shades I'm adding at this stage. just add a little bit of a gray background so that we get a general idea of the color scheme that is coming along. As you can see, we are having the red rose as the focal one, two diagonally placed white roses and diagonally placed yellow roses as against the red rose, and then the background will be in muted shades because as it is, the red rose and the yellow roses are going to be quite bright, as you can see. So the background we will have to keep very muted so that it doesn't become too harsh to look at if the background is made dark again. So the background will have to be in neutral tones, tones of grays and browns, and little bit of yellows we will be adding later on. Now we will start with the detailing of the roses. Here I am starting with the red rose, detailing of the red rose. I am adding the darker shades, the petals which will be having individual petals which will be having the darker side of the petals will be adding a little bit of not just the dark reds, but we will also add a little bit of Prussian blue, cobalt blue and things like that to make it even more dark, like I have done in the center of this rose here. I am adding a little bit of yellow for the highlight ones. White highlight will come at the later stage, at the end stage, but just to add a little bit of shading and a little bit of interest, I am adding a little bit of yellow also to this red rose, which will be sort of not exactly yellow, but once it is merged with the red shade, it will become sort of an orange shade. Here again as you can see, the bowl of the red rose has been made a little bit darker, and I'm just merging those shades into each other by just rubbing against each other. As you can see, the yellow shade and the red shade have just rubbed against each other to create a sort of a smoother. I'm not trying to achieve a very blended sort of an effect here. I'm going to leave it patchy. That's how I want it to be, that's how I intend it to be, and so I'm not going to blend it too much and not going to make it very smooth as such. Patchy effect does look more artistic. Of course, every painting has its own style. In this one particular one, I am going to leave it a little bit more patchy. Let's see how it turns out. It might just give out a good effect. Every painting is a new experience when you do, so you do want to experiment on your own. Once you start doing more and more paintings, you definitely want to try out different styles and different ways of painting. So in this one I'm not going to blend too much, but yes, I'm not going to leave it too patchy also, so as to give it a sort of an impressionistic look, realistic impressionistic look sort of, which will turn out to be quite appealing is what I feel. Now for the white rose, I am using the white pastel as well as blending it with blues, light blues and dark blues, and even a little bit of yellow here and there, so as to bring out its shades. For the darker shades, I am even applying a little bit of purple, a little bit of Prussian blue, so that the third dimension of that white rose will come out. Every petal I am trying to give the shadow of each and every petal, which is being marked out in the darkest of tones, so as to bring out that petal, make that petal pop out. And I am again, just as before, I am rubbing all the shades against each other so as to make them blend a little bit without making it too much. So as you can see, each petal is being given a sort of a shadow, and the darker side here I am using a Prussian blue and even purple little bit for the white rose, and bringing out its darker areas. For the white area, of course, I have used the white crayon, white pastel itself. Here in watercolors we normally leave out the paper white as a white, but since we are doing in oil pastels this time, I am using the white pastel to make it blend with the other colors. And I'm again adding a little bit of the shadow portions, the background portions. As you go along, just add a few more colors here and there and try to blend them together just by rubbing against each other. I'm using grays, I'm using greens and blues and purples for the background where it is touching the flowers, so that the flowers also pop out and the background also will be a sort of a muted background. Starting with the yellow one, again now I'm applying sort of a chrome yellow shade all throughout first, and then I will blend it with a little bit of orange so as to give the darker shade. Here I'm starting with the orangish sort of a shade and blending it into the yellow so as to bring out the darker shade of the flower. Add a little more darker orange here and there to bring out the darker areas of the flower and make it pop out. Again, just like before, each and every petal will have its shadow, which will be right now I'm using blue again, and blue and even a little bit of purple to mark out the shadows of the petals, just like before, just like we did for the red rose and the white rose. The method will be same for each and every rose, no matter what color it is. Basically, we are having the left side portion of each and every petal a little darker, a little lighter, and the right side portion of each and every petal a little darker, so as to bring out the three-dimensional aspect of each and every petal and each and every rose. Here I am also adding now the red buds, again in the same fashion. We are starting with the lighter and then the darker, a little bit of green here and there, and now the leaves. For the leaves, again now I'm using different shades of greens that are available. I have a light green, a dark green, olive green, and I'm also going to add a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of orange here and there to bring out the natural shade of the leaves. Leaves are never just green, they do have sort of a reddish and sort of a orangish shade to it. And again, just like we did for the roses, the darker areas of the leaves will have to be indicated, the shadows will have to be indicated. All the shadows will necessarily be on the right side of the roses and leaves, and each petal will have its own shadow wherever it is falling. So again, to bring out the buds, rose buds, I'm using a sort of a darker background around it so that it will pop out. And now with the background, continue with the background, add grays, muted, like I said, the background will be in muted shades. So I'm adding grays and yellows and whites a little bit and rubbing them against each other so that they sort of merge with each other, they blend with each other without blending too much. Like I said before, I'm leaving a little bit of patchy effect because that is what I intend to do, like I said earlier. So I'm using these grays, a little bit of blue, a little bit of yellow ochre, yellow and white. So that I'm using white for the background for merging the colors together so that it becomes muted, it becomes more subdued and not very harsh, because I don't want the background to be very prominent. Again, we will now do the other side petals in the same way using different shades of green. Add with the lighter ones, then add the darker ones, and add the lighter again for the highlights. That's how you work in oil pastels. Many a times there are different ways of doing it. Many a times you also start with the darker shades and then move towards the light. But then what happens is it also depends on what paper you're using. Here the paper I'm using does have a little bit of tooth. It's a standard normal cartridge paper. It's not any specific special paper intended for oil pastels as such. It's just a standard cartridge paper, but it does have a tooth. That is the texture of the paper. The tooth in the sense the texture of the paper. And so you can use that texture to your advantage to blend the pastels, the shades of the pastels together. But what happens is, as you blend, as you rub against each other, as you rub the paints colors against each other, the pastels against each other, the tooth starts to get flattened, and therefore you lose the texture. And then what happens is, the lighter portions, if you want to apply over the darker ones, it becomes slightly difficult. So it's always better to leave the lighter shades separately and work the darker shades separately. And wherever you do feel you want to have the lighter shades over the darker ones, you can always try to do that and achieve them. Again, here the background is done in those muted tones. I'm applying the yellow ochres and grays and blues and everything, and over that I'm again using white so as to make the background a little more subdued. I'm using quick strokes here because I don't want to have any particular shape in the background, so I'm just using random quick strokes and merging the shades together, different shades together. I'm using a variety of shades so as to bring a little interest to the background, because if you use just one single color for the background, it becomes very monotonous and it might look flat. So what I'm doing here is, since I am considering the light coming from the left hand side, the background also on the top leftmost corner is lighter, as you can see, and on the right lower corner it goes towards darker shades. Now I'm using a toothpick, the back of a toothpick here, to scrape out some lines that I want, and also I'm using here an earbud to merge the colors together. These are some of the techniques that I used for oil pastels. You can try them out on your own. They are quite simple. You can either merge it with your own fingers, but I feel that is a little clumsy, so earbuds is always very good. And if you want to pick out some lines, few white lines and all, I've done it with the toothpicks, and it's ready. The painting is ready. Thank you. Thanks for watching, and do subscribe, like and share, and do leave your comments. Thank you so much.